Hello, 7th grade, it's Miss Odell, and we're going to have a lesson here on reviewing for our quiz. All right, so this quiz is going to be tomorrow, and the things that are going to be on this quiz will include proper fractions, improper fractions, mixed numbers, changing fractions from a mixed fraction to an improper and an improper to a mixed fraction, equivalent fractions, reducing or simplifying fractions, and then your simple adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. All right, so we're going to go through that step by step. Make sure you take good notes and you have a good understanding of what we are going to be doing. Therefore, if you have any questions in the meantime and you don't understand what we're doing, then feel free to give me a call or text me, and I'll be happy to help you. All right, so let's get started with the first thing. And the first thing we're going to talk about is let's identify what let's identify what a proper fraction is. Okay? An improper fraction. And lastly, proper, improper, and a mixed fraction. All right, so a proper fraction is a fraction that is simply written like this, okay? Now remember, the top number is your numerator, and your bottom is your denominator, okay? So remember, a proper fraction is a fraction that has a smaller number on top of the bottom number, okay? An improper fraction is the opposite. An improper fraction would be 23 over 7. Think about it being top-heavy. The larger number is on top. Okay, and the smaller is on the bottom. That is an improper fraction. And of course, a mixed fraction has a whole number and a fraction. Okay, and that's what a mixed fraction is. Okay, so moving on here. Now, if you were asked to write, we'll be asked to write an improper fraction to a mixed fraction and a mixed fraction to an improper fraction. So if you were given 3 3/5, you could recognize that this is a mixed fraction. And in order to change this mixed fraction to an improper fraction, you use this method. You multiply the numerator times the whole number. And what do you get? 15. You take that answer and you add it to the numerator, okay? Let me back up here. You multiply the denominator times the whole number, which is 3 times 5 is 15. You add that number to the numerator, which would be 18, and that beautiful little denominator stays the same. That is your answer, okay? Let's do another one of those, okay? I'm going to write it here, and I want you to do it and see how you do, and then I'll do it with you, okay? So 4 and 5 over 6. Okay, so you can pause your video if you need to and work that out. All right, so I'm going to multiply, and then I'm going to add, okay? 4 times 6 is 24, plus your numerator would make it 29, and that little denominator stays the same. That's your answer. So you multiply, add, denominator stays the same. Now, if you have an improper fraction, such as 20 over 3, you want to change it to a mixed fraction. It's improper because the top number is larger than the bottom number. So what you do is the number 3 drops outside the house, the 20 drops in, and you divide, which is the same exact thing because fractions are ultimately division. So how many times will 3 go into 20? It'll go 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. You have a remainder. Now, this whole number, the 6 is your whole number. Your remainder is your numerator, and that little denominator stays the same, and that's your answer. Let's do another one of those. 5 and 5 over 8. Okay, So I'll give you time here, or you need to take time and pause this video and try to work it, and then come back and then watch me as I work it, okay? So 5 times 8 is 40. Plus 5 more would be 45. And the denominator stays the same. Now let's do another improper to mix fraction, okay? Let's do 32 over 5. Let's do the same. Let's pause. And I'm going to work that out now. You should have already worked it out. 5 divided in, or 32 divided by 5, because that's what you say, 32 divided by 5. 5 goes out, 32 drops down, goes 6 times, and you will have a remainder. Okay? So, 6 is your whole number. 2 over 5, and that is your answer. Now, let's talk about writing equivalent fractions, okay? And equivalent fractions are exactly as it says, they are equal. Okay, I'm going to write some here. Okay, so now let's look at this first one here together. Okay, so this is number 1, number 2, and number 3. So, what you do is you ask yourself, 8 is a factor of 40. Yes, it is a factor of 40. So, what can I multiply by 8 to get 40? And that is correct, it's 5. So, you take that 5, you multiply your numerator times that. 5 times 6 is 30, and that is your answer. Okay? So, 7 is a factor of 14. So, what can I multiply by 7 to get 14? 2. You bring that 2 up here and you multiply the numerator, and then your answer is the answer. Okay? Let's do one more. This time, pause the video, try to do this one yourself, and then come back to it as I work it with you, okay? All right, 9 is a factor of 63. What can you multiply by 9 to get 63? 7. 7 times 9 is 63. So now you multiply your numerator and you get 21 over 63. All right, moving on to the next set here, and we're going to be reducing fractions. Sometimes you're going to see it as simplifying. That means, or simplify, that means the same exact thing. You're going to reduce it to its lowest terms, okay? So, 20 over 46. Okay, you automatically can ask yourself, when you look at this, you can say, well, I know I can divide both by 2. So let's just divide both by 2. You can go more than that, but we're going to start. No, you can't. Actually, that's it. So 20 divided by 2 would be 10. And 26 divided by 2 would be 23. And that is your final answer. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say we have 16 over 40. And we want to simplify this or reduce it into lowest terms. Now, think about what factors you know of 16 and 40. And I know that 8 is a factor of 16 as well as 40. And so I know that 2 times 8 is 16, and 5 times 8 equals 40. So I'm going to cancel out my 8's, and my answer is 2 over 5. Okay? All right, let's move on. Now we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions. Anytime you are adding and subtracting fractions, you always have to have a common denominator. That is not the case for multiplying and dividing, but adding and subtracting you do. So we're going to practice some of those, okay? So let's say that I have 13 over 15 plus 1 over 15. Now, this problem can be written horizontally, or it can be written like this. And you can solve them both just as easily, okay? So 13 plus 1 is 14, and your denominator is the same, so there is your answer, okay? Now, let's say that we have 7 over 9 plus 3 over 18. Remember, you have to have a common denominator 9 is a factor of 18 in this instance. So what can you multiply by 9 to get 18? 2 times 9 is 18, and you want to multiply the numerator by the same. You want to multiply the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to rewrite my problem as 14 over 18 plus 3 over 18, and that's going to give me 17 over 18. You always want to make sure your final answer is in your lowest terms. If you have an improper fraction, you want to change it to a mixed fraction as well, okay? So now let's do 1, and we have 1/3, and we're adding 3/4 to that. Do we have a common denominator? No. Do we have, are they factors of each other? No. So simply what we have to do is we have to take the denominator from this fraction. The denominator is 4. Bring it up here to the other fraction and multiply it. Take the denominator of this fraction, bring it down here and multiply it. Okay, so you got 4 over 12 plus 9 over 12, okay? So it's really the same thing as multiplying these two denominators together, but whatever you do to one, the denominator, you do the same to that numerator and the same thing in the other fraction, okay? So now let's add, and we're going to have, when we add these together, we're going to have 13 over 12, which that tells me that my answer here is an improper fraction. So I'm going to change it through division, or if you already know it in your head, your answer is going to be 1 and 1/12. Okay, so now let's look at subtraction quickly. It's basically the same exact rule, except you have to borrow. So you always want to make sure that you have a larger number on top. 37 and 2 over 9 minus 16 and 1/3. These are usually the harder ones. I see here that I do not have common denominators, so I must find a common denominator, and 3 is a factor of 9, and I know that if I multiply 3 by 3, I will get 9. And I'm going to do so, and I'm going to rewrite my fraction. Okay, so now I'm ready to subtract. Uh-oh. Notice that my top number is smaller than on my top fraction is smaller than my bottom fraction. Remember, in order to subtract, the larger number has to be on top. So you have to find a common, you have to borrow, not find, you have to borrow, okay? So I'm going to borrow a whole number here, and this will make it 36. And then technically you're going to add 9 over 9. Why did I choose 9 over 9? Well, because you're taking a whole, and 9 over 9 equals 1, and I borrowed 1 from 37. Or, the way that I like to look at it, when you understand that method, then you can say, okay, then I'm going to take my denominator and add it to my numerator, which is going to give me 11, okay? So now I have 36 and 11 over 9, subtract 16 and 3 over 9. Now I'm finally ready to subtract. And I'm going to get 20 and 7 over 9. And that is my answer. Now let's do some multiplication. Okay, guys? So if you have 2 over 5 and you are multiplying 3 over 6. Now remember, with multiplication and division, you do not have to have a common denominator, but you can cancel out to make your answer easier to get in a simpler form. Here, can I cancel out? Yes, because 2 is a factor of 6. I know that 2 times 1 and 2 times 3 equal each other, and so I have a 1 left and a 3 left, okay? So 1 times 3 is 3 over 15. That is in its lowest terms, and that is my answer, okay? Let's do one more. This time I'm going to pause. I want you to pause, actually. And I want you to do your cancellation and see what we can do here, okay? So pause the video and then start it back when you're ready to get started, okay? Now, I'm ready to cancel out. I know 10 is a factor of 20. So 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 3 is 3. I have an improper fraction, so therefore I'm going to change that to 3 1/3. Okay? Now, let's talk division and... Okay, let's move on. Okay, so let's say that we have 3 3/4 here. And this could be the same for multiplication. So just so you know, you could be multiplying, or actually let's do this as multiplication, then we'll go do the division, just so you'll know. So if you are multiplying or dividing fractions and you have a mixed fraction, then you must change this mixed fraction to an improper fraction before you can multiply, okay? So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 more would be 15 over 4 times 2 over 15, and looky there, that cancels out, which leaves us with 2/4, which is also 1/2, okay? Now, let's talk about division. So let's say we have 15 over 4 divided by 20 over 3. You guys remember my KFC method? KFC. So I'm going to keep my first fraction. I'm going to flip my second fraction, and I'm going to change my sign to multiplication. Okay? So, can I cancel out? Yes, I do have something here, because I can say 3 times 5 and 4 times 5. Cancel out my 5s. I have a 3 and a 4. 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 4 is 16. And there's my answer. Okay? Let's do one more. Let's say we have 10 divided by 5 over 7. And anytime you have a whole number, you're going to put that over 1. Now let's do our KFC, which is 10 over 1. Keep, flip, and change. And your answer is 14. All right, guys, so please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.